Welcome to another episode of Altitude Advantage. I am your team reporter and host, Elisa Hernandez. Across the table from me, we have our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla, and back on the pod, our digital media contributor, Susanna Ware. Hi, guys.
What's going on?
Happy Thursday.
Thank you. Getting ready to preview another exciting game. Susie, you're going to say hello to the nice people out there?
Hello. I'm back for a Thursday edition.
Oh, you sound thrilled.
I am thrilled. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, there's a lot we're going to get into today. We're going to talk about Bo Nix and hitting the hat trick and accolades this week, as well as a great defensive performance that the team is looking to carry as they head west to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. So a lot to get to in today's podcast as we prepare for this. You know, it's rivalry week. We love a good rivalry. But first, we love some good comments that Broncos Country has left on the podcast. And I assume you have some queued up for us.
I, of course, have some. Yeah, you can leave a comment on our official YouTube page, the Denver Broncos official YouTube channel. Leave a question, leave a comment, and we'll read them here on the air. Bronco Knight 34 said, I couldn't have asked for a better first Broncos game I went to. I'm still in shock at how well they played. I haven't been this excited for the team in years. I had so much fun, and I can't wait to go back. And I'm not reading the last sentence of what they wrote. Bronco Knight, congratulations on a good first game. Yes. That's a good first game to go to.
That is a great first game to go to. It was a lot of fun. And obviously, there's no cheering in the press box, but it was a lot of fun, too.
That's
silently.
True. We were like, Suze, relax over there. Jumping up and down.
Sure, yeah.
You guys... I've been here. It's my 9th season, so I've seen some stuff. You guys, you just come in. It's your first year. Boom, they win.
I mean, hey, we love to bring the good luck charms. I think we had a fan of the week that commented a while back and said that they hadn't lost every game that she went to, so maybe she was in the stands.
Yeah, it keeps showing up. My little nephew went to his first game on Sunday, so the baby is 1-0.
Hey, babies bring good luck.
The babies, I guess, do bring good luck.
I mean, hey, we have a young rookie class playing great. So,
ooh, you think it's connected? Baby rookie.
I'm saying.
That's a good point.
We did a fun Spanish quiz with the players on our social media account, and we asked them what's the Spanish word for rookie, and as you know, a decoy, we put el NFL bebé, and one of the guys were like, "We know that's not the answer, but we wish that it was."
Yeah. What is the answer?
Novato.
Novato.
That
like
means
novice.
Sure. Novato. Yeah, you know.
Probably.
I think you could learn Spanish pretty fast.
I took Spanish in like all through elementary school, middle school, high school, college. Very bad at it. I don't. My mind doesn't. I think you got to be like a little creative to have to know multiple languages and like very not that.
Suze, any other languages you know?
I took Spanish 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and then French in college.
Oh,
no, in high school, not college. I didn't take it.
I was like, wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, I only took 1 year of Spanish in college, and it was an 8 a.m. class, and that was a poor decision. Cody Cooper says Mondays are better when Bo throws for 300 yards and 4 tutties. I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
You don't have a case of the Mondays when Bo's thrown for 4 touchdowns and 300 yards.
We love a good dub day.
That's right. Bronco football junkie. On cloud 9, this team hasn't made me this excited to watch them in years. We're watching much must-see TV with the Broncos. LFG, 3 exclamations, 3 fire emojis.
That's right. We're excited for
pretty exciting.
The upcoming games. We have a couple of good matchups coming up. All eyes will be on the Broncos as they continue to make their playoff push.
They're in a good spot right now. Got to keep it going. Nick Wise says it's been 9 grueling years of lackluster games that have left me scared. But finally, we are witnessing the resurrection of this Broncos team. And my God, I couldn't be any happier. I love the show. Y'all have done an amazing job this year, and I find myself coming back on a weekly basis.
Hey,
thanks, Nick. Last name's Wise, so you know he's pretty smart.
I mean, you know what? When you were reading that comment, I literally thought of the GIF of like the Undertaker rising back up. That's what I pictured.
Is that how you feel since it's been 9 years since you got here?
Did you see how he said grueling? He was like grueling. Like
I'm just trying to get into the comments.
I feel like you felt that in your heart.
Seth. Sorry, Seth. I don't know how to say your last name. Bo Nix says everything it takes to be elite. We're in for an exhilarating decade, Broncos country. At this rate, we'll be coming for the crown in the near future.
Hey,
wow. Seth's fired up. I like it.
Fired up. Suze was nodding. She agrees. She's like, wow.
Good comment.
Francis Motionless 393. If Bo Nix doesn't get Rookie of the Year, he's getting robbed. Minus the first 2 games, Bo has had amazing games, even in losses. I think we'll talk about Bo Nix a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about Rookie of the Year. It's still early, but we're getting close to I think where it's fair to have that conversation. Mike Church says, Aric, he spelled my name wrong. Thanks, Mike. I would disagree. The Chargers game, I thought on both sides of the ball, they came out flat. It's imperative this team is ready to go. I don't know that I agree with that, Mike.
Are you pushing back?
Well, I just think
on a comment
you lost your best defensive player on the first series of the game. Like, I don't know that that's coming out flat. It's more just you got to adjust on the fly. Maybe they didn't do a great job. And that's a good defense. It'll be a good rematch here in a few weeks. The Chargers are rolling right now. Harbaugh's got them playing well. So we'll see. Okay, just a couple more. Actually, one more.
Aw.
Martin C4. That's a good question. Maybe each of you can choose somebody. After 11 games, which Broncos players are most likely to be chosen for the Pro Bowl?
Ooh, that is a good question.
Susie, you want to start? Who's one player you think should or will make the Pro Bowl?
I'll go Zach Allen.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Second in the league in pressures.
Yeah.
Good player. I think people are finally starting to take note. Second in the team in sacks, third in the team in sacks. He's had a good year. He deserves to go to the Pro Bowl. That's a good pick, Suze. Hopefully, the one thing I worry about is Zach, and hopefully, the Broncos have a Monday Night Football game that's not getting flexed. They're going to play in some big games here down the stretch. A lot of the time, Pro Bowl voting is about how much exposure do you get to fans and to other players. Yeah. And so when the coaches put on the film and look at it, they're going to know Zach Allen, but you hope that enough fans realize how good he's been and that he gets some credit there. So, Zach Allen's a good choice.
Yeah, I'm going to stay on the defensive side, and I'm going to go Casa Bonito because Nick Bonito has been playing very well. I think stepping into this, getting more snaps and really kind of getting after the quarterback, he's been on a tear. I mean, he had 2 sacks last week, I believe. He leads Denver in sacks on the team, and he's tied for second in sacks in the NFL with 9. So, I mean, he's on a roll.
He's playing well. He's
playing really well. So, Casa Bonito, you have my vote.
I agree. He should be up there. The other thing with Pro Bowl voting is that you often, and a lot of guys talk about this, you often get chosen to the Pro Bowl 1 year after you should because it takes that name recognition of like Nick Bonito this year is kind of surging onto the scene. Will it take one more year before people around the league kind of take note? And then the other thing you see is you tend to make it to the Pro Bowl one more year after you should. Like there's guys, maybe your last year isn't so great, but you make the Pro Bowl based on name value. You see it happen to like a Brady or a Peyton even, like that sort of thing happens. So I wonder, I agree from a pure statistic perspective. I agree that Nick's right up there. And maybe even like an all-pro or a second-team all-pro might be more likely, but we'll see. Hopefully he gets that. I'm going to choose Pat Surtain.
That just felt like the obvies.
Yeah,
well,
that's
nobody said it.
That's a good cue.
We left it for you.
Yeah,
thank you. Yeah, I need the obvious one. Pat Surtain allowing the lowest passer rating in the league among any corners. He has the most interceptions since his rookie year. He's playing at a really high level, and we came out of the last game, and no one was really talking about Pat Surtain, and then you see the stats, and you're like, oh, they didn't throw at him. That's why no one's talking about him, and he's just so good that he erased 2 receivers that had 600 yards and 5 touchdowns coming into the game. Yeah. Like Mooney and London are 2 really good receivers, and they just didn't do anything because Pat Surtain was like, today you don't get to play football. You just get to come hang out over here with me, and we're going to chill. Maybe they chat. Do you think they talk when they're not doing anything?
I'm sure it's very interesting chatter. But.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe not podcast appropriate, but yeah, Pat just it almost, I don't want to say it's boring, but it's like so routine and expected now that you're just like, oh yeah, Pat shut somebody else down. But I think around the league, people are taking note of what Pat's doing, and he should be a Pro Bowler again. I think that's his third, would be his 3rd Pro Bowl. Should be a first-team All-Pro again, which would be his second first-team All-Pro in his first 4 years. And that's what Hall of Fame careers are built on.
Yeah, you called it last week when you said you were looking at the stats, and you look at his stats every single week, and it's easy to say like, oh, I wonder why this receiver didn't do anything. And when you really break it down, you see that Pat was covering them. He's literally done this since week 1, just taking out key playmakers, putting on a clinic every single week.
He's crushing it. Nice job, Pat. Keep it going. Anyway, if you want to leave another comment or you want to leave a question on our YouTube page, go to the Broncos official YouTube page and let us know what's going on. We'll read it here on the air.
Yeah. Those are some good, that was a good question to end on. So I appreciate you lobbing that up for us. for the Pro Bowl picks. Obviously, Pro Bowl voting is going to start in a couple weeks, and next thing you know, the season's just flying by. I mean, it's week 12. The Broncos are in a completely different spot than they were at the start of the season. And now you look at the development of Bo Nix and what he's been able to do. Like we mentioned earlier, he hit the hat trick in accolades this week.
Suze, what sound would you think you would make if someone like scored a hat trick? Like what would the Jumbotron, what sound would it make?
In soccer or
hockey, that you can do that there? Like
in hockey, they throw the hats on the ice.
Yeah, but what sort of sound? Like
by who? The crowd or the player?
like a sound effect from the Jumbotron.
Oh. Yeah, Elisa does it better. But yeah, something like that.
Something like that. Okay.
I'm here for the sound effects, guys.
What sound effect would you
Actually,
choose?
what sound effect? No, we're asking you
I
now.
think it'd be a little high, like like a little bit more celebrate, like maybe a trumpet.
Oh my gosh, please make that sound after I read each of these because Bo Nix won NFL Rookie of the Week, AFC Offensive Player of the Week, and FedEx Air and Ground Player of the Week. We love a good sound effect. But yes, Bo has been, he's coming off a huge game in Atlanta. And obviously, He swept them. And I think it's one of those things that after that Atlanta game, Pat Surtain, PJ Locke, Zach Allen, a few guys on the defense side of the bus especially, were giving all the praise. I mean, PJ Locke even joked, like, I hope he wins AFC Player Rookie of the Week again. And then, boom, he gets what he asked for. But just like the way I think this team has been playing, it was really interesting hearing Bo talk after practice yesterday when they asked him about these accolades. And he's just like, yeah, it's great. It's obviously a big responsibility. He's like, one of my favorite quotes that he said was, but let's be honest, people only remember your last game. And I think having that focus, it's great to enjoy these awards, but he's focused. He's like, look, as great as this week was, I have to go out and perform again, especially against the Raiders, regardless of the record, regardless of their losing streak. It's a rivalry game. All eyes are going to be on us again.
Yeah, I think you've got the perfect kind of mentality from everybody, even though the mentalities are different. And here's what I mean by that. The guys in the locker room who are not Bo, so Cortland, Javonte, Pat, PJ, they're fired up by what Bo's doing. And Javonte was talking in the locker room yesterday, and he was asked, how do you have all this success? And he's like, well, a lot of it is just what Bo's doing and what Bo's showing us out there on the field as a rookie. And Cortland's talking about, hey, he's going to shatter the record books. Like the record books are in danger from what Bo's doing each week, and he keeps breaking through each kind of next level. And he's Cortland said he needed to find a thesaurus to describe exactly how happy he was for Bo. Maybe we should have a segment where we just look at a thesaurus and just read off synonyms for happy. But I think that's what you want from a teammate perspective. Like, you want them to feel inspired. You want them to play better. You want them to raise their game based on what Bo's doing. And then I think the attitude that Bo has of, it's cool, but like, what's next? Mm-hmm. That's what you want from your quarterback, of like, everybody around you can be celebrating and the fan base can be celebrating and we can be celebrating. You got to be focused on what's next. What can I do better? How do I keep it going? And that, I think, is specific in some ways to the quarterback position. Like, if you're a corner on a roll or a running back or a receiver, like, I think it's okay to kind of feed into that and live off it a little bit.
Yeah.
When you're the quarterback, it's got to be this business-like approach. And so Bo's got the right attitude there. And then I think the other person is Sean Payton. And he, I think, also has had the right approach of, hey, let's recognize that what he's doing is impressive. He's giving confidence to this team. He's improving week by week. Mentally, he's out there knowing that there's answers to different things the defense can give you. He's, just handled all of that really well. But then also he had that quote, let's not put him in Canton quite yet. And so it's also the, hey, let's have this guy's back, but let's push him to be better. Mm-hmm. And so I think when you have that mix of a team that's inspired and feels really good about the quarterback, and then a quarterback and coach that aren't satisfied and want to keep pushing forward, that's a good mix. And I think Bo's gotten to the point where, like, for me, it's always how do the Broncos win this game? But Bo's at the point now where, as we go towards Sunday, I'm thinking, okay, how do the Broncos win this game and move forward in the playoff race? But also, like, what is Bo going to do next? And I think that's a fun thing to have a rookie quarterback and be like, is he going to go out there and throw for 4 touchdowns again? Is he going to go out there and run for 50 yards and 2 scores? Like, what is he going to do? And I think based on what you've seen the last few weeks is he could do any of those things.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I really like about the way that Sean Payton has been handling all the praise, much as the praise that Bo is getting, it's almost like you have to be a shield and protect your rookie quarterback from that, right? Because as high as the highs are, the lows can be just as low. And I think when you have a quarterback and a coach that have that relationship where they keep everything kind of in the middle, you give the kudos, but you also just kind of focus on things to make them better. I think that's a recipe for success, like you said. And I think when they had asked, Sean Payton last week about Bo's ability to get out the pocket and avoid sacks, he's like, yeah, he's really good at it, but you'd be careful to tell him that he's really good at something because...
Well, I think what he meant there was like, you don't want to coach him too much when he's too good at it because you don't want to say, hey, this is how you avoid sacks because he just knows how to do it. So I think that was more of a compliment from him that he was like, there's some things we're just going to let Bo do because he's good at them and he knows how to deal with it.
And that's a balance you have to have, right? Like you have to let a player be a player, but also still find ways to coach him in the areas that he needs. I think that's the best way to help him develop. And you've seen that development literally happen before our eyes as he kind of comes off this big game. Again, winning Rookie of the Week, back-to-back weeks in the NFL. That's a big accomplishment.
Yeah. Suze, you got a stat for us about Bo Nix winning back-to-back Rookie of the Week awards?
Yeah, I do.
Let's go.
Bo is the first Broncos player to win twice in the same season since Tim Tebow.
In?
You tell me. No, I'm just kidding. 2010.
Okay.
In 2010. And the first player to win in back-to-back weeks.
First Broncos player?
Yes. First Broncos player to win in back-to-back weeks since no Sean Moreno.
I mean, and the Broncos obviously have had some impressive rookies since then, like Von Miller, I think never won Rookie of the Week. And you're talking about a guy that was
crazy.
Defensive Rookie of the Year, I think, right? So to not win Rookie of the Week, like Philip Lindsay won it once, Drew Lock won it once.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of guys that have had a chance, and Bo did it.
Yeah, well, I feel like Bo really got a lot of people's attention, including, as you had mentioned on the pod, after that KC game, Travis Kelce. I think he just got a lot of people's attention after that KC game. And what I mean, a lot of people, I'm not talking about here in Denver, I'm talking about like the outside media and the outside fans. I feel like they really caught on to like, whoa, like what is this rookie doing? Especially because all attention was on Jaden Daniels and kind of, what he's been able to do with the Commanders. And then now you have Bo Nix as kind of had that really great game against KC. I feel like all eyes really started kind of looking. And then people were like, okay, well, let's see what he does next week. And then he comes out and has a game like that. I think that really kind of puts things in perspective. And, he's the first rookie in NFL history to complete 80% of his passes while throwing at least 4 TDs and 300 yards. I mean, like you said, the stats just kind of kept going. 4 for 4 in the red zone against the Falcons. So I think he's also playing a lot more free because your defense is also going out there and having fun and just pressuring the quarterback, getting after the quarterback. And I asked Marvin Mims, does that allow the offense to play a little more free? And he had this big smile on his face, and he was like, yeah. And he's like, honestly, I'm probably the first guy that gets really happy when our defense performs like that. He's like, because then I know I can go out there and return the ball as much as I want. And kind of having that, those two sides complement each other, I think really sets him up, as they kind of go into this week.
Yeah, and you're right, Bo's played at a high level. Last week, I unleashed a vicious eye roll during a question. I don't know if anyone caught that. There were no comments about it. Susanna caught it, but I don't know if any commenters caught it. But Suze brought up a stat that is directly from the NFL research packet about the Broncos record versus teams with winning records versus teams with losing records. And I rolled my eyes because like Tampa had a winning record when the Broncos beat them, and New York had a winning record when the Broncos beat them. And so I found it a little silly that now we're considering those bad teams because the Broncos beat them. So I didn't think it was a fair statistic.
I don't think that was the stat that you rolled your eyes at.
What stat did I roll my eyes at?
You rolled your eyes at them being shut out 2 games in a row in the second half.
I think there were multiple eye rolls.
That also earned an eye roll because I thought that was silly as well. But
she just eye rolled you
it
back.
no longer stands, so.
That's true. They scored a lot of points in the second half, didn't they?
Yeah, and after the game, a lot of them were talking about how they finally played a full, complete 4-quarter game. So it's almost like they kind of agreed with me.
It wasn't you, was it? It was the NFL.
Well, they just agreed with the value of the stat.
They definitely listened to the pod. And they were like, oh, we have to fix this.
I see. So I have another stat that I think is kind of silly. The Broncos.
Silly time.
Ready to roll my eyes.
Yeah, keep them going. Okay, so Bo Nix by pressure percentage, and I do want to go back to what he's doing overall in a second, but in terms of this game, the Broncos are 6-0 when Bo is pressured on fewer than 30% of his dropbacks, and they're 0-5 when he's pressured on more than 30% of his dropbacks. I would imagine that those pressure rates are mainly from early in the season, and I think there's this notion that like either teams pressure well or they don't. And if you're playing a team with a high pressure rate, that Bo is automatically going to, not have a lot of success. We've heard Sean Payton talk a lot about sacks or a quarterback statistic, and I'd imagine pressure rate is a similar statistic. The offensive line is getting well-deserved credit around the league for playing really well. They're number one in pass blocking efficiency. But at the same time, it's because Bo is getting rid of the ball quickly, and he's reading the defense, and he's checking into the right plays. And so it's not a surprise that as the season goes along, you're seeing more and more games where he's not pressured all that much because he's starting to get these answers, right? And he's starting to figure things out. He's for example, in Week 11, and I know the Falcons' pass rush has struggled, but Bo was pressured on 14% of his dropbacks. It's the lowest in a game in 2024. And so part of it, yes, is the offensive line. Part of it is some of these matchups. But I also think that like the reason that the pressure rate has been low and that they're 6-0 in those games where he hasn't been pressured and he's thrown 10 touchdowns and no interceptions and has a 106 passer rating in those situations is that like Bo is limiting that pressure rate because he's seeing things that are coming. And obviously it does help when you play a team that doesn't get after the quarterback very much. The Raiders have a 29.7% quarterback pressure rate, fifth worst in the NFL, 19 sacks, which is the fourth fewest. They're one of 5 teams with a quarterback pressure rate below 30. So that falls into that 6-0 stat. And I think in that Week 5 game, it was also below 30. That was Nix's first career game with 2 passing touchdowns and a 100 passer rating and no interceptions. But again, I think some of this is like things are happening and then you're like the stats are being manipulated a little bit to be like 6-0 in one category, 0-5 in the other category. Right. I bet if you looked at it, if you took all those games, I bet you would see that as the weeks have gone on, Bo's allowed a lower pressure rate and or this offense has allowed a lower pressure rate and it's contributing to success. So I think that it's easy to say 6-0, 0-5, but there's more to it there. But at the same time, he is avoiding pressure, and it's helping the Broncos offense find success. They got to do it again. Max Crosby,
it's nothing to be played with.
Is he's a beast. It's like his hair's on fire when he plays the Broncos. He's just insane when he plays Denver. Yeah. So they gotta limit him, make sure that he doesn't have those game-changing, game-wrecking plays. Because in my mind, if you go out and just play football the way you've played the last few weeks, you should win this game. The only way you're putting yourself in harm's way is if you let Crosby have a strip sack, if you let
if you let him get going.
If you let him have 4 or 5 sacks, like that's the way that the Raiders could upset you here. But I haven't seen anything from Bo over the last few weeks that would suggest to me he's going to let that happen. I think Sean Payton mentioned, and knock on wood here, that Bo Nix wasn't strip sacked in college. I don't think he's been strip sacked in the NFL. So he's even when he's gotten sacked, he's held onto the ball. Yeah. But those swing plays, the defensive game-changing plays that Crosby can make, that would be the one thing that you've got to make sure doesn't happen.
Well, a lot of the guys in the locker room talked about just that, right? Because a lot of the questions that were asked, the Raiders have lost 6 in a row, and you guys finally got over the hump and you guys beat them, and every player had the same answer of it's the Raiders, and they're gonna play us probably one of the toughest of the season because of what this rivalry is, as well as we got over that and we beat them in Week 5, but they want to get that win back. They want, it's all about starting the streaks, right? And I think when you look at Max Crosby, he leads the Raiders in sacks with 6.5, and Adam Troutman gave him a lot of credit. He was he's one, if not the best defensive player in the NFL, and we cannot underestimate anything about this team, regardless of records. And Riley Moss said it too, this is why we take everything week by week, and we don't look at, their losses we look at, hey, again, any given Sunday, we've talked about that a lot on this podcast. Anything can happen, and we have to go out there and prevent things from happening by coming out aggressive, coming out physical, coming out playing our game to not turn into a one-dimensional team, because that's the worst thing that they can do. And I feel like in the losses that they had, Sean Payton has mentioned, something got taken, this got moved, and we turned into a one-dimensional team. We got away from what we're used to doing, and that's why we did not get the results that we wanted. And I think that when you go to Vegas, especially because the Broncos have never won in Vegas against the Raiders since the Raiders moved there from Oakland. I think it's one of the biggest things that, it's another added motivation, even though the players aren't necessarily talking about it.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll get to kind of how they've approached this week and going from a win back to facing a team that's only won a couple of games, that's on a 6-game losing streak. But I do want just to put a bow on the Bo conversations. I think there is, at this point, it's fair to talk about him entering the Offensive Rookie of the Year conversation. Obviously, Jaden Daniels got off to that really fast start. But Bo has, I think in a lot of ways, caught him. And if you look at the stats, if you look at what he's done since week 4, win and loss, tied first, completion percentage second, pass yards per game first, pass touchdowns first, passer rating first. The whole season, wins first, completion percentage first, passer rating second. And I saw a stat that there was something like over the last 7 or 8 games, he's got like 12 total touchdowns or 14 total touchdowns and just 2 turnovers. And he's the first rookie since 2000 to do that. And so you're getting into things where it's not just like good for this year. You're talking about historic type things that he's doing. I'm trying to pull it up here quickly as we chat, but like, I don't know what you think, but it feels like it's anyone's award down the stretch, and especially if the Broncos keep winning and Bo does have maybe the benefit of playing some defenses that have struggled a little bit, like the Raiders. Like if he puts up some numbers here, I think you're going to be having a very serious conversation down the stretch of, is Bo Nix the Rookie of the Year, and is he able to overtake Jaden Daniels?
I mean, have you read the story of the turtle in the air?
I don't want to say Bo's a turtle.
I'm not gonna say it's not a. Do you not know the metaphorical things behind that story? Because I mean, it's not about it's not about how you start; it's how you finish. And I think that's one of the things that this team saw in Bo when he kind of got here in training camp, and just kind of letting him develop at his own pace. And I think now you kind of see him catching up, and he's entered the rookie race. I think at the best time. It's the middle of the season, it's the thick of the season, as teams are really kind of making a playoff push. And I think that's really important when you look at how this team has really rallied around him since week 1. This team, his teammates, I feel like have not changed the way they view him. Suze, we've been in the locker room talking to guys after games. I feel like their confidence in Bo has never really shaken, ever.
No, not once. I mean, I think every time that they're asked about it, they say, like, listen, he's been confident from day one. Like, we've never doubted that. We've never, hesitated to put our faith in him. Like, even in those first 2 games where he did struggle, none of them flinched, including Bo. So, I think that's just a testament to the presence that he's been in the locker room and as a captain of the team. And I think it's good that, bad games, good games, that has never wavered at all.
And here's a stat. Only rookie QB with 18 touchdowns and 2 or fewer turnovers in a 9-game span since at least 2000. Wow. So it's been pretty impressive. I do think, again, like I said, it's not just anymore about how the Broncos can win this game. I'm also each week going into it what is Bo Nix going to do next? Because if you told me that he's going to go out there and throw 5 touchdowns this weekend, I'd be impressed. But I'm also not that's impossible, right? That's just how he's playing right now. And when these guys have gotten rolling a little bit on offense, you saw it in spurts against Kansas City. They moved the ball against Baltimore, even though they didn't convert. But whether it's Carolina, Vegas, early in the year, New Orleans, especially when they've played some teams that have been struggling. And I think we'll maybe get to this stat in a minute, but what they've been able to do against quote unquote struggling teams has been really impressive. So we'll get to that in a minute. But I know the other side of the ball, not going to be easy either.
Well, there's another rookie that was actually nominated alongside Bo, which was tight end Brock Bowers, who had a really good game against the Dolphins. Bauer had his first career game with 100-plus receiving yards, including 13 receptions, which is the most by a rookie tight end in NFL history. He also leads all NFL tight ends with 70 receptions and 706 receiving yards in 2024. So he's coming off a really big game, and he's gonna want you're going to want to have another big game because it means more when you do it against a rival. And the Broncos are going to have to be ready for that because Gardner Minshew, he threw for over 250 yards and 2 touchdowns in that loss against Miami on the road, and a big bulk of that went to the rookie, went to the tight end.
Yeah, I think, like you said, 13 catches, I believe 17 targets or something like that. Sometimes you talk about, is a team willing to feed a guy over and over and over? and just force the ball to him. It seems like the Raiders are willing to do that.
Yeah.
It's got to start with stopping Bowers, especially now that Devontae Adams is gone. And I know he wasn't there for the first matchup either, but like you saw the first drive of the game last time, Bowers boxes out PJ Locke, scores a long touchdown, and you're in a hole quickly.
Yeah.
Like those are, again, the types of, I think if you just play this game out and there's nothing crazy that happens. There's not these huge splash plays. Like I feel pretty good about the Broncos' ability to just keep doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Where it starts to get hectic or scary or shaky or whatever is, like I said, if Max Crosby gets a strip sack, if Brock Bowers, out leaps somebody and ends up with a 60-yard touchdown, then you just get into a little bit of scary territory. And so I'll be interested to see, how do the Broncos adjust in terms of how they limit Bowers. Again, you've got to put these guys in obvious passing situations the same way that you just did to the Falcons. This defense, as we talked about earlier, with our Pro Bowl selections, all on defense, by the way, has been really good. But you've got to find a way to limit Bowers, force the ball to other people. If you take away Bowers, does it force Minshew into making mistakes? That wasn't really kind of his fault last week, but obviously in the Broncos win over the Raiders at home, Minshew got benched, and they put Aiden O'Connell in because he turned the ball over a couple of times. So
that's what you want to do. Like you said, like those takeaways and knocking someone out of the game, because Gardner Minshew can clearly throw the ball very well, and he can hurt you in areas. But if you throw him off his game early, then you have an advantage.
Yeah, and I do wonder, and we haven't heard from Vance Joseph yet, and we didn't see this really much the first time around, but I wonder if because of how good Brock Bowers is, do you at least consider putting Surtain on him at times? And Surtain mentioned that sometimes he lines up out wide, so maybe you see him, on him in those situations. I don't know if you bring him in there in the slot. I thought McMillan at times did a nice job on him, but that would just be something I'd be curious about if Surtain's at the point where you just say whoever the best receiver is, even if it's a tight end down there, like let's get Pat on that guy. And Bowers isn't like, as far as I know, he's not like the Antonio Gates size, so it might be a little bit easier for Surtain to cover him, but that's the key offensively is as it always is, stop the run and then take away Bowers and force the ball to these other guys.
Yeah, well, when you look at that Week 11 matchup versus the Falcons, and Kyle Pitts coming into that game, he had 6 games with 50-plus receiving yards in 2024 going into that matchup against the Broncos in Week 11, and the Broncos defense held him to 3 targets for 9 yards. So the way that they're able to kind of knock out, doesn't really matter the position player, like they were able to knock them out the game, and I think the way that they were able to, hold Bijan Robinson to basically nothing in the rushing game as well. I think they're shooting on all cylinders, and I think like when you're able to stop a really good running back, a good tight end, and top receivers on the team, and you're able to get, like they just, again, it's never a perfect game, but when you play as close to perfect as possible, which Sean Payton has kind of preached all season long, we're not looking for the perfect game. We're just looking to be as close to perfect as possible. And I think the defense really kind of showed out in a way that they showed that it doesn't really matter what weapons you have out there. We have the talent on this team to stop each one of them.
Yeah, they've been good. I think that's like obviously an oversimplification, but it's just they've been good week in and week out. In the one game against Baltimore and maybe a quarter against the Chargers.
Yeah.
But like we're now 11 games in, and you're talking about like a game and a half where it hasn't been perfect or it hasn't been great. Like you'll take that. And I think now if you want to move toward kind of this mindset, this mentality of where they are, part of what impresses me so far is, like I said, they've taken care of business against the teams that they should take care of business against. And I know that this stat is manipulated again in a way that
all stats are. So
they're all manipulated.
Well, you can manipulate any stat to be to your advantage, basically. But go on.
Okay. Well, I haven't manipulated this one, but other people have. But the Broncos 5-0 against teams currently below 500. Again, the Jets, the Bucks.
Cue the eye roll.
Well, it's just like the Bucks were rolling.
For those listening to the podcast, I really hope you guys go to YouTube and watch it, because the visuals are A1.
It's just silly to me, because like just if a team, maybe you're the team that like push the other team down this slope where they like can't recover from it. Or maybe you're the team that
I'm not disagreeing with you.
hard to tell. Anyway, against teams that are below 500 currently, the Broncos have averaged 26 points. They're allowing under 12 points. Their turnover margin is +5. And then if you just look at the scores, you know, the Tampa game, 26-7. The Raiders game, 34-18. The Saints game, win by 23. The Panthers game, win by 14. And they gave up a late score there in the final minutes. Falcons win by 32. And so not only are they kind of beating these teams that either are these toss-up games or the should-win games, they're kind of just, they're running away with them, and they're not even letting these teams get close. The one-score win is against the Jets, that 1 point win kind of in some crazy weather. But I think that's encouraging in that you're not letting struggling teams hang around to where they could beat you. You're kind of just like, it's an easy win. You're rolling to these wins. And not that there haven't been like difficult points, like the Panthers went up early, the Raiders went up early, but then you just find a way to quickly get past that. And then it ends up not being a game where like I'm stressed out at the end, right? You're just, it's a win that feels comfortable. And I think as you go down the stretch here, you've got the Raiders who have 2 wins, the Browns have 2 wins, and the Colts I think are currently 4-6. Is that right? 5-6.
And that loss to the Broncos actually kicked off the Raiders losing streak, I believe.
Right. Yeah. The Raiders have not won since the week before they played the Broncos. And so, listen, we talk about getting into the playoff hunt. Can you win the games you're supposed to win? And I would say the next 3, you're supposed to win them. And Javonte even mentioned that, Javonte Williams in the locker room, that like Sean Payton's talked to him about, we got to find a way to get these. And so there is that week-to-week mentality, but at the same time, can you go take care of business? And there's a difference between confidence and allowing that confidence to become complacency and not being ready. But hearing from the guys, and you guys were in the locker room, it doesn't sound like they're overlooking this Raiders team at all, or that they're allowing. And listen, when you haven't made the playoffs in this long, you would think you wouldn't get complacent because you're so close to something that you can basically taste it. Like, got to find a way to keep it going. It sounds like they've got the right attitude.
Yeah, I mean, even Pat Surtain said yesterday, he was like, yeah, we beat this team earlier in the season, but much like we're doing different things now than we were at the beginning of the season, so are they. And so to continue to just adapt to that and not think that it's just going to be the same game that it was last time, because it's certainly not. But yeah, I mean, a lot of guys in the locker room were saying, yeah, it's still that game-by-game mentality. I know Adam Troutman said yesterday, yeah, it's like kind of tough to not think about the playoffs when you're in the position that you're in this late in the season, but at the same time, you can't lose sight of like what's just right ahead of you right now. So,
and the mindset that's been working for them all season. The Raiders offense has been struggling in the last couple of games. I believe there's a stat that was out there that they've been kept under like 21 points, I think, in like 5 of their last 6 games or something like that. Like it's a stat that like you kind of hope that the Broncos defense continues and they kind of take advantage of, especially now that Bo is really kind of getting in his rhythm, and the Broncos are having a lot of games where they're scoring a lot of points. And I think
that's right. I think 5 of the last 6, they're 20 or fewer.
Hey, look at me go. When you look at, again, like the mindset that Suze was talking about in terms of like complacency, and a lot of the guys, I think Cortland Sutton talked about that yesterday, where he said, he's like, I don't see us complacent, but with a young team, you don't want that to happen because it can creep in at any point in time.
Yeah, and they're in a different spot than they've been, quite honestly. There was a point after the Steelers loss where the media is talking about, are the Broncos going to be favored in any game this season except for the Panthers game at home? And now you've got a situation where I think the last I saw it, they're favored by 5.5 on the road against a division opponent that they haven't beaten there ever, and they haven't beaten on the road since 2015. I mean, that's pretty significant. And so we're about to find out, how do the Broncos handle success? And I know that it feels a little weird given that they've only won 1 game. It's not like they're on this 10-game winning streak. Mm-hmm. But the game in Kansas City, I think, was really encouraging. You'd won 5 out of 6 before those 2 back-to-back road games against Super Bowl contenders. And so you're going to find out here, like, how do you handle being good, and how do you handle having success, and how do you just come out against the Raiders in a way that doesn't give them hope or doesn't allow them to think, hey, can we win this football game? You just want to put your foot down immediately and send them to another loss. And I think that you mentioned what Cortland said. The key is that you've put yourself in a really good position here. You're 6-5. You came back from an 0-2 start. You battled the Chiefs. You really probably should be 7-4. Like, you battled the Chiefs really tough. You came back against the Falcons. And it's easy now. We're looking back like, oh, Bo Nix won all these awards. It was 38-6.
Yeah.
You crushed them. But when we went into this game, it was like, okay, well, if the Broncos lose this, they've lost 3 in a row. Their playoff chances have dropped below, I think, 40%. Like, you're playing a top 5 offense in Kirk Cousins. Like, what's going to happen here? And so the fact that they came out and did that, got that win, now you're in a position where you can stack some wins, hopefully. But what you can't have happen is that, you know, you've got this opportunity where hopefully you can win some in a row here. And maybe you go into that last stretch of 3 games where down the stretch against the Chargers, Bengals, and Chiefs, who the Chargers and Chiefs are currently in the playoffs, and the Bengals, you know, Burrow's playing at an MVP level, even though they haven't had the team success. You don't want to go into a situation where you let one slip against the Raiders because you're not locked in or you're not focused and you're not prepared, and they steal one from you. And then all of a sudden, instead of having to win 1 or 2 of your final 3 games, you got to go win all 3, right? And so that's where the mental toughness of this team is going to come into play of, can you just put all your success aside and go out there and play winning football, be locked in, be more physical, be more ready to go than the Raiders, and just take care of business. It's a game you should take care of business in, and let's see him do that. I think the fact that you have Bo Nix, who is so mature for his age as a quarterback, and you have Sean Payton as your coach, this is one of those times where I feel like this is why you hire Sean Payton, right?
Yeah.
It's not just to get you out of 0-2 or get you out of a 7 or 8 season playoff drought. It's also, how do you handle success? And I think you saw his teams in New Orleans handle success. You see these good coaches around the league. Jim Harbaugh, what he's doing with the Chargers. Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh, Belichick when he was there. And obviously there's more good coaches than that, but like, they don't let their teams slip up against in this sort of game. And so this is one of the weeks where I'm like, man, I'm glad Sean Payton's the head coach because he's going to have them ready to go. Yeah.
And I think, you know, the back-to-back losses, they hadn't lost back-to-back games since the start of the season, right? And then, so you have the adversity to, you know, to kind of recall on to be like, okay, how did we get out of this hole the last time? And how can we go ahead and do that? And after they lost those back-to-back games, they won 3 games in a row. So I think the complacency, they're aware that it can happen, especially when you have a lot of young guys on this team, a lot of rookies on this team. But based on the tone, and Suze, you can chime in here if you have something to say about it. But like, I feel like the rookies really understand like their roles, and I think multiple of the veteran guys were like, there are no more rookies in here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the veteran players have definitely like embraced the contributions that the rookies have been making, and I think it was Cortland Sutton was saying like, I just can't wait to see like a player like Devon Vele like continue to develop, because just the strides you've seen in those players from the beginning of the season. I mean, you know, you're through 11 weeks here and you've seen crazy development. So, and, you know, we still have 6 games left to be played. So, you know, and then the rookies just have been embracing that role as well. And just every single time you talk to them, I think, you know, every time I've heard Troy Franklin speak, he's just been like, I'm just getting more comfortable. I'm getting more comfortable each and every single week. And so, you know, same way as Bo's been getting more comfortable. So I think continuing to see that comfort level and then have that lead to results. We've seen them all get more involved as the season has gone on. So I'm excited to see what's left for them this season.
I remember when you called on Broncos Week, when you called game on Troy Franklin, and he almost had that big touchdown. And then to finally have him, like, you know, to kind of see.
My arms up in the press box, I was like, I did it.
And then.
No, then it didn't happen.
It's all right. It's all right. But to see, but I'm saying like the growth from that play to now, and I feel like the way that these veteran guys, to Suze's point, have kind of really taken each rookie to pound the position under their wings to kind of say, like, look, like, this is the way to do this. And we've seen guys obviously stay after practice and get those extra plays in. I think they had asked Troy Franklin after the game on Sunday, like, hey, like those plays that you're going to have with Bo, like, do you guys practice them after practice? And he goes, well, he's like, we at least have to try them once in practice, you know? And so you kind of see the way that this team is really going around the rookies, but the rookies are also not being discouraged. Like, there's no like, oh, you're just a rookie, like what you do doesn't matter. Like, every veteran on this team is very much supportive and having them say like, look, like Devon Vele, he's been able to kind of come up in key situations, and the way that Bo has been able to develop, the way that this O-line has been able to support the running backs, I think it's a very well put together team, and a lot of that credit goes to Champagne, what he's been able to do with the culture shift here.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when we looked at the schedule before the season, I looked at the first 4 and I said, they need to find a way to get to 2-2. Then you look at the next 4, they need to find a way to win 3 of those 4. And then I looked at this stretch, which beginning with the Ravens to the bye, and granted, Vegas and Cleveland doesn't look quite as challenging as it did at that time, but it was like, man, you probably need to win 3 of 5 there.
Yeah.
And so far, they've at least they've still got to win these 2, but they've given themselves the chance to hit all those marks. And I do that every year in terms of like, how do you get to the playoffs?
Yeah.
And a lot of the times they've fallen short or they haven't met that mark, or you get to a point where it's like, okay, well, if we win the last 5 in a row, maybe we can make it. But the Broncos have put themselves in a position here where if they keep winning the games they're supposed to win and maybe get a toss-up here down the stretch.
What is it? Steady wins the race? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
right?
that's the turtle. Broncos
the
are the turtle.
tortoise.
The tortoise.
Okay, those are basically the same thing.
Just saying.
You can adjust any fable to say what you want to, right? Sure. Like a stat.
Oh man, you guys. But look, I think like to your point, the Broncos have put themselves in a good position, and I think now the season always comes down. Again, it's really interesting. And when you were saying earlier, like, oh, the defense is just good, and we're just week by week. It's like, one, we call that analysis, but also it's just understanding. Like sometimes you do have to make it that simple. Like sometimes you do have to break it down as simple as possible so that the moment doesn't get bigger than what it needs to be. So
just play your good defense. Bo, go through your progressions, make the throws that are there. Mm-hmm. Don't turn the ball over. Play physical. Mm-hmm. Be ready for this game. You're gonna be good. You're gonna be in good shape. I'm not obviously you don't ever know how a game's gonna play out, but I do feel like the way we've seen this team come out in games that it should win. I'm hopeful that they can end this streak, and we've talked about all sorts of streaks right over the last. It's been a long time, years, but like you've broken some of them over the last couple of years. Haven't beaten the Raiders, haven't beaten the Chiefs. Now it's haven't beaten the Raiders on the road. Like let's get rid of another one and just keep rolling toward ending the biggest streak, which is playoff drought.
Yep. PJ Locke said it. He said that, you know what, this team is tired of just getting not over the hump, and now he believes that they have what it takes to get over the hump. And I think it all started with that week win in Atlanta. So we appreciate you guys listening to another episode of Altitude Advantage. Once again, I am your team reporter and host, Elisa Hernandez. Across the table, we have our silly stat detector, Aric DiLalla, as well as one of our coaches and instant analysis extraordinaire, and we have our digital media contributor and eye roll detector, Susanna Ware, to the right of me. So we appreciate you guys listening and watching on YouTube. Make sure you guys subscribe, comment, leave your comments, questions, predictions, all that good stuff, and we will see you guys on Sunday. Looking for a big win in Las Vegas.